To every yea there was a nay. So today, many people in the universities view in postmodernism several anarchic characteristics. One, postmodernism calls for total spontaneity. As though spontaneity that is not informed doesn't turn out to be more than what I would call an event. Like during the 60s, they had that phenomenon that a happening was the word. It was made to be destroyed. Spontaneity that is not informed, that does not find its own libertarian, and I use this in the leftist sense, form of organization, can be completely manipulated and very frequently burns itself out. And I saw that in the 60s. Feminists will turn, not all feminists by any means, but a number of feminists will turn to postmodernism merely as a way of declaring that they're anti-patriarchal. Postmodernism is what is not modern. Just like there are many people who call themselves deep ecologists because it's supposed to be deep. The kind of depth they're getting into remains unquestioned because they don't even read, in many cases, the literature that the deep ecologists are turning out today, which is basically anti-human in many respects. Anti-human in a misanthropic sense, in an aversion for human beings, and an attempt to mystify the animal world, non-human animal world. Others will turn to postmodernism, again, because they feel that it's a total break with the past. And they feel that the past right now represents civilization. And with that they become decivilized, because postmodernism offers them no other program. It offers them no program for social action, and it allows for a great deal of personal introspection, which, going back to the case of the onion, leaves nothing but the smell behind. So these are the attractions, and it's acquired a fad-like quality. Your friends are postmodernists. Anyone who you think is an intellectual is a postmodernist. So you form a gang. There's a kind of groupie mentality about postmodernism. The same thing happened with Jürgen Habermas in the United States. The man has a lip impairment, a mouth impairment, which makes it possible for him to be understandable in German when he just reads the newspaper. He not only has that lip impairment, but he talks with a very heavy German accent when he speaks in English. And then on top of that, his prose is the most abstruse I've encountered since who knows what. Since I read Immanuel Kant. And boring as well. But that's beside the point. The thing is that people are into fads, but these fads are very frequently substitutes for very serious analyses. And by the way, the postmodernists are the anti-totalitarians par excellence, because they identify any kind of coherence with totalitarianism. Hence, if you're consistent, bear this well in mind, you are a potential totalitarianism. You're bringing back some or another form of Stalinism or Hitlerism. Use whatever you want. So incoherence has now become very fad. It's just like MTV. Those two cartoon characters on MTV are very faddish. It's a way, to insult authority, but at the same time, and I certainly believe that authority must be insulted, to put it mildly, that is no substitute for not having organization, without having coherence, without having a sense of direction. And postmodernism offers no sense of direction. It thus feeds on itself as a fad.
Students, young people, they can't turn to postmodernism to become revolutionaries, and it's difficult to find a radical framework within which to build ideas, to become empowered, to become organized. There's no tradition in the institutions, no Marxist tradition, no anarchist tradition, no general radical tradition where people might have a preferential solidarity with those who are most oppressed. Given that, where do young people today turn to find the radical framework?
In the United States, they can go to the Institute for Social Ecology, where the views that I've expressed are taught. I helped found that in 1974. They can also try to communicate, and I would see to it that they meet kindred types, if they are around, of people who are radical ecologists of one kind or another, and anti-capitalist, and even have a class analysis. And It's very simple. All they have to do is write to my post office box, P.O. Box 111. It's easy to remember, 111, Burlington, Vermont, 05402. And we would be people I'm associated with. We have a group in Burlington, and we have other friends throughout the United States and indeed throughout the entire world. There's even talk of calling an international conference of social ecologists, which essentially constitute the same designation for anarcho-communists of the type that I have been trying to advance. I should like to make it plain that there are anarchists with whom I disagree as sharply as I do with Michael Parenti. And it's not just a question of being, quotes, by Parenti's standards, anti-communist. It's a question, basically, of trying to find a coherent ideology. Postmodernism tends very frequently to attract individualistic anarchists, again, who are peeling an onion. And I would disagree with them as much as I would with people like Parenti, or for that matter, I don't know, many other people, deep ecologists and the like.
The difference between anarcho-syndicalism and anarcho-communism has caused conflicts through the years. Can you describe that difference?
Well, the word anarcho-communism means communism, long since identified as from each according to his, her ability, and to each according to his, her needs. In other words, you do what work you can that is required of society as much as you can to the extent that you are into doing it. And you receive what you need to keep yourself alive, to satisfy your needs. One can get silly and say that people who are given the freedom to satisfy their needs will bring in 10 television sets into the room. Well, such people more approximately, people are not that insane. Okay, let's be frank about it. Presupposing such a society, whether Marx or Kropotkin advanced these communistic beliefs, is the idea that there will be enough to meet basic needs. And thereafter, we can negotiate, in a sense, in an open democratic manner, how not basic needs, but other needs that are more than basic, I wouldn't call them superfluous, can be worked out, negotiated, shared. Such a society would be communist also in the very real sense that the means of production are communally owned. They are not the private property. I'm not talking of personal goods, like your watch or your hi-fi set or your TV camera or your TV, anything like that, or your clothing. Nobody's ever proposed that as the ultimate form of communism except certain religious zealots, going back to the Middle Ages perhaps, or even more recently. That's a different story. Now, the distinctions, anarcho-communism is ultimately what it is supposed Marx wanted to achieve anyway. What was supposed to be the basic argument between the anarcho-communists and the Marxists, communists that is to say, was how to get there. And Marx, living in the 1850s, 60s, dying in 1883, if I'm not mistaken, Marx felt that you still did not have enough technological development in the world to get things around, to give people the things that they needed in terms of their basic needs. That everyone would have to work. So there would have to be various stages that you went through in order to develop the productive forces, technology. Now the technology is not only developed, it's overdeveloped. You know what I'm saying? It's overdeveloped, beyond being developed. So that these stages now become meaningless, except if Marxists were to respond as means of educating people into a sense of virtue and a sense of cooperation and decency. In other words, undoing the effects of capitalism and of hierarchy, if I were to take it further. Anarcho-communism, in turn, simply says that what is already obviously true, that we don't have to go through these stages, which could lead to an authoritarian development, as they did in the Soviet Union. I believe that Lenin was a genuine revolutionary, but I think the tragedy of Lenin's position was that he held on to a centralist view so overwhelming and so